Russian armed forces unexpectedly broke through in 3 locations into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Good day, dear friends. We continue to analyze the situation on the front lines daily. Before we begin, I would like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Novopavlivka direction, as of February 12th, situation in the Volkhya River area. According to various sources, Ukrainian armed forces units have begun withdrawing from the Dnipropetrovsk area towards Ulakli. This may indicate a difficult operational situation for the UAF in the area known as the Volkhya River Pocket. Despite orders to hold their positions, UAF units, having suffered significant losses, are gradually retreating westward, incurring additional losses in the process. The situation in the Ulakli area also remains tense. This settlement, as well as the nearby Constantinople, on the route to Zaporizhzhia, have been operationally encircled after Russian forces gained control over the village of Andriivka, located to the north. Additionally, Russian units continue their attacks from the south and are conducting reconnaissance in force towards the settlement of Bohatyr. The overall situation in this sector remains dynamic, and further developments are expected in the near future. Velika Novosilka direction, as of February 12th, resumption of active operations. The Russian Vostok grouping, which previously completed the operation to establish control over Velika Novosilka, has resumed its offensive in this area after a period of rest, replenishment and regrouping. Over the past 2 days, fighting has taken place north of Vremivka, resulting in an advance of approximately 2 kilometers to the north. Progress has also been noted towards the settlement of Novosilka. Given the intense fighting taking place northeast of this area, aimed at eliminating the UAF grouping in the Volkhya River Valley, it is likely that the offensive in the Velika Novosilka direction also had a diversionary purpose. This could have prevented the enemy from redeploying reserves to more critical sectors of the front. The results have been quite successful. Not only was the enemy's attention diverted, but new positions were also secured. You know what Zelensky said yesterday? He stated that the territory controlled by the UAF in Kursk Oblast could be offered to Russia in exchange for parts of Ukrainian territory currently under Russian control. But here's the catch. Do you know how much territory the Russian army has captured since 2022? Over 80,000 square kilometers. And how much does Ukraine control in Kursk Oblast? Approximately 450 square kilometers. So what kind of exchange would this be? 450 square kilometers for 450 square kilometers. What do you think about this? Write your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to the situation on the front lines. Let's open the map, particularly in light of Zelensky's statements about a territorial exchange, which I already mentioned. The intentions of our military command to advance into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast become clear. This movement is now especially noticeable, and it is happening on multiple fronts. One of them is this sector here. The movement towards the administrative border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk Oblasts is occurring both from the north and the south. If we look at the north, this includes the western flank of Pokrovsk, the Uspenivka area, and the Nadezhdinka area. Movement towards Dnipropetrovsk Oblast is underway in all these areas. It should be noted, however, that progress is not uniform. For example, after Russian forces took control of Nadezhdinka, this village here, it seemed that reaching Dnipropetrovsk Oblast would be a matter of days, or at most a couple of weeks. But when was Nadezhdinka captured? In late January, January 25th to be precise, and now it's February 12th. Almost 3 weeks have passed, and what do we see on the map? Nothing. There has been no advance from the village towards Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, let alone reaching the border. Although you can see the open terrain leading to the small village of Kotlarivka, and beyond that lies Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. However, the UAF command also understood the danger, so they brought in reserves, which are preventing Russian forces from crossing these fields towards Kotlarivka. As for the Udakny area, from which Russian forces are also not far from Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, just a couple of kilometers, the current objective here is not to advance into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, but to hold back the UAF's counterattacks, which have been ongoing daily, as I discussed in detail in yesterday's update. If we move a bit further south, some progress has been made here. Specifically, the village of Uspenivka, after prolonged and intense fighting, has come under Russian control, and the fighting has now shifted to the neighboring village of Novo-Alexandrivka. By the way, here are some footage from Uspanivka. This is what Uspanivka looks like at the moment. Now, if we return to the details, you can see that further progress will be challenging. As you can see on the map, beyond Uspanivka, there is a cascade of villages. The UAF, of course, will cling to each of these settlements. So, let's look. Novo-Alexandrivka, Novoserhiivka, Novomykolaivka, Muratka, and Belyaivka. Only after these villages can an advance into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast be considered. Given how long the fighting for Uspanivka lasted, it began in the first 10 days of January and is still ongoing as of February 12th, meaning it has lasted a full month. An advance into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast from this sector could take Russian forces several more months, if not longer. At first glance, it might seem that the situation is quite bleak for the Russian military command. The UAF is successfully holding back the advances and preventing the planned entry into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. But this is not entirely true. Yes, in the north, the UAF has managed to halt the Russian advance thanks to reserves. But the situation in the south is entirely different. Here, the Russian army is progressing very much according to plan. There are two sectors where significant progress is evident, and an entry into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast is a matter of weeks, not months. The first sector is here, near the village of Zaporizhzhia. Yesterday, Russian forces pushed the UAF out of the western part of Zaporizhzhia and took control of the village. Thus, the Russian army maintains a very good pace of advance here. For context, the fighting for the neighboring village of Serebryanka lasted only 5 days. The fighting for Zaporizhzhia lasted a bit longer, beginning on February 3rd and ending yesterday, February 11th. That's 8 days in total. 8 days of fighting for Zaporizhzhia. Now look further. There are 3 villages located close to each other: Bohdanivka, Troitske, and Orikhov. From Orikhov, it's just 1 kilometer, 1,120 meters to be exact, to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Even if we assume the same pace as in Zaporizhzhia, 8 days per village, Russian forces could cross the border into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast by March 8th to 10th. Beyond this point, you can see open fields with no settlements until Novopavlivka. So mark it down in your notes. Between March 8th and 10th, Russian forces will enter Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. But this is just the first sector. There is a second one, located further south, near the village of Andriivka, which has also effectively come under Russian control. Here, the UAF's defenses are collapsing before our eyes. However, it took only 2 weeks for them to lose such a large village. Beyond this, as I've already mentioned, the advance will continue towards the next major village, Alexandrivka. This is where decisive battles will take place. Why decisive? Because beyond this village, there are only 3 small hamlets, or rather 2 very small villages. The village of Dakhny is already in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, so it's Alexandrivka, followed by 2 small villages, and then Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. In general, the plan of the Russian military command is straightforward. Enter Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and secure enough territory to exchange for the part of Kursk Oblast currently under UAF control. At the moment, this amounts to 450 square kilometers. However, by the time negotiations begin, this area might be smaller. We'll see. Lyman direction as of February 12th. Situation report. After regrouping, the Russian armed forces resumed offensive operations. For 2 days, intense fighting took place in the Yampolivka area, where Russian troops achieved tactical successes. Today, objective control footage confirmed Russian forces' advance in the Makivka area, where they managed to slightly expand the bridgehead on the western bank of the Zherebets River. At the same time, no significant changes have been observed in the Borov direction. Pokrovsk direction as of February 12th. A counter-battle south of Pokrovsk. For several days, the armed forces of Ukraine have been conducting intensive attacks aimed at breaking through the Russian defenses south of Pokrovsk. Their objective is to flank and strike the rear of the Russian grouping encircling the city from the west. Despite the resources deployed, no significant breakthrough has been achieved so far. Ukrainian forces have managed to breach the Russian defenses near the settlement of Pishchene and have taken control of most of the village. Fighting continues in the industrial zone. Additionally, Russian forces were forced to withdraw to the outskirts of Kotlin. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue their assault on Udakne and already control up to half of the settlement. The situation remains tense, and the threat of a Ukrainian breakthrough persists. Kursk direction as of February 12th, Cherkaska, Konopelka, Sverdlivka, Sudja Sumy Road. The situation in Cherkaska, Konopelka remains tense. Despite some successes, full control over the settlement has not yet been established. UAF units in this area continue to hold their positions, but their situation is assessed as difficult. Active operations are also ongoing in the Sverdlivka area. Changes are possible in the near future, but there is no precise data yet on full control over the territory. On the Sudja Sumy Road, intense nighttime clashes involving drones and vehicles were observed. Preliminary reports indicate that Russian forces had the upper hand in these engagements, which could create additional difficulties for the UAF in this area. Similar incidents are likely to recur, potentially affecting the overall operational situation near Sudja. Menohrad-Toretsk direction as of February 12th, Malinivka. Active combat continues in this sector. The UAF, recognizing the strategic importance of controlling Yelizavetivka, which limits logistical and maneuver capabilities in the northern direction, continues to hold this settlement, regularly reinforcing it. As a result, Russian forces are forced to employ envelopment tactics, attempting to pressure Yelizavetivka from multiple directions. In particular, efforts have been made over several days to advance towards Malinivka, reaching its eastern outskirts the day before. If Russian forces can consolidate their position in Malinivka, Yelizavetivka will be threatened from three sides, significantly complicating the UAF situation in this area. Additionally, Russian units have reached the southern outskirts of Tarasivka, where preparations for a possible assault are underway. The overall operational situation for the UAF in this sector remains challenging. That's all for today's Frontline Update.